in what method you choose to bring a child that has those characteristics to the perfect fluency in both languages.
Right. So you would say when at the time when you were teaching and at the college that it was more of a, you try to incorporate more of a bilingual system where to bring the students on a higher level with their English as well as their French.
Yes. Yes, I did it for 9 years. It was my 9 years, last years at the college, and it was very successful because my goal was not just speaking. My goal was to find the method to use for bilingual children because they were already 13, 14 years, 15 years, and at that stage, they are bilingual. At different level in both languages, but they are bilingual. And I would say, and I would repeat, and I am convinced that if you are not bilingual, it will be difficult for you without being introduced to a method. It will be difficult for you to teach a bilingual child because a bilingual child do not function in the same way as a unilingual child because that child has two linguistic references in his head. And apparently, I don't think that the English language correspond to the part of the brain, the same part of the brain as the French language. The French language is a more intellectual, it's a more conceptual language, whereas the English language is a more practical. If you have to say something, say it directly. In French, you could go and you know, and even suggest, but the person will still understand. Whereas in English, you definitely have to be a little more precise in your way of expressing yourself. And all of this, I have been able, for 9 years teaching in those classes, to observe what method I had to use. And one of the things I have come to realize is that your mind, nobody's mind, discriminate what language they are speaking. That's the reason why you see bilingual people will pass from one language to the other. It's not they're mixing up, it's not, and even kids, it's not that, is that behind the language there is the idea. And generally, it is the idea that prompts you to speak or to use a particular word. And sometimes the particular word in that other language that you know corresponds more to the idea that you want to express. So I had to deal with all those aspects. And since I know, you don't even know that you speak English or that you speak French, you pass from one to the other. Therefore, the mind doesn't know what language you're speaking. So it was very important for me to see how to bring the child to master those two languages. And one of the ways was the use of the dictionary, not the bilingual dictionary, but the unilingual dictionary in both languages. So they had to practice going to see the meaning of the word in each language. And they have discovered, like we all discover, that all words, the words do not cover the same semantic meaning, the same meaning in languages. You have the same word, sounds the same, but different areas of meaning. So all of this have to be taken into consideration. And one of the best way is for the child to, and that's one of the way you feel the language, because you know the meaning of that word. When you go in the bilingual dictionary, and I would say, because I'm also a translator, the bilingual dictionary never helps me.
No.
Never
Because
helps
it just
me.
gives a translation, basically.
But it's not the one that you are looking for. So you see that is the issues. And unless you understand that, if you are a bilingual person, you will understand that. If you are not, you don't understand that. So that's why I say a unilingual teacher cannot properly teach a bilingual child, because there is all those little things that is written nowhere that you have to feel, you have to understand. And I think I was able to have those children without I being just not a teacher per se, but guide. When they used to ask me, teacher, what does this mean? I said, I don't know, take your dictionary.
Well, we have to take a break. When we come back, we will continue talking about the bilingual situation, and then you have children, you know, what did you choose for your children in the educational system? Stay tuned and we will be right back. Hi and welcome back to A Better Place. We were just going to talk, well, we were already talking about the bilingual situation, and I wanted to know if you felt like the local St. Martin child was at any time at a disadvantage because of the strict French curriculum that is in place on the French side.
Yes, of course. Of course, as I say, for a child to learn in the most efficient way anything, the system that is dealing with him has to take into consideration all the characteristic and linguistic and cognitive characteristic of that child, and which the system doesn't take, doesn't pay attention to. So of course some children will fall between the holes, and some others will do well, some others will fall between the holes. And what happens is that our children, never the system has paid attention to the fact that we are dealing with not English-speaking children, but with bilingual children. And when we say bilingual, we have to consider that you are never bilingual in two languages, let us put it this way, at the same level. Our kids were bilingual. They could understand French. They could speak. They could speak it. But the point with languages is that you have to have the habit of speaking. If you don't give yourself the habit of speaking, you will never be able to speak it fluently.
Yeah, I agree.
So if the school do not, the method that is used in the school, do not pay attention to all those aspects, well, of course, some will make it and others will fall between the holes. Then, what I have noticed, you are talking about my children, I did most of my experiment with my children. When you are dealing with bilingual families, in other words, in the family, you have not only English speaking, but both languages are speaking. Mm-hmm. This is another aspect of it. And what I have observed, although my daughter, for instance, lived in a bilingual situation, and she was born in St. Martin, so it's a real bilingual situation. Could you imagine that the first language she spoke was French? So what happened is I noticed, why is she speaking French? She hears both languages, he's speaking French. And my last son now is the contrary. He was speaking English. His first language was English. So I started to experiment on her, and I noticed one day that she was about 3 years old. Somebody, a St. Martin person, gave her a message for me. She was outside in the yard, and she came. She gave her a message in English, and she came and she told it to me in French.
Okay.
Okay. So I say, oh,